Iona, it's wonderful to be here at your home in the Comox Valley once again, and reminiscing about our time together in helping with the formation of the Fraser Basin Council and looking at its achievements over the years, and what are some of the more prominent ones that come to your mind when you think about the evolution and growth of the Council?
I think making the Council representative of all parts of the Fraser was one of our big achievements. I think of the meetings that we had when the entire Council would gather, say, on the grasslands above Williams Lake, or where we put the whole Council together under people we remember like Phil Hallinan, no longer with us, who made such a contribution to the creation of the Council. And always, of course, the glue that held it together, that was you and the staff in Vancouver. So I think of all that with great happiness.
Yeah, I do as well. One of the fondest, I guess, experiences that I've had working with the Council is the diversity of people over the years. We probably had 150 to 200 British Columbians sit on the board of directors since the inception in 1997. We've probably had close to 100 staff, and it's just been an amazing story. What are some of the personalities that come to your mind?
I think of Darlene Marzari talking about the plume of the river that spread all the way around Burrard Inlet and up into Howe Sound. And of course, we used to joke about it, but it was a serious matter. And I think about so many of them who mean so much to us. Marie Mervyn up in Alkali Lake, and our teams of people who worked. I mean, the grasslands was part of our responsibility just as much as the water. And I would like to think that one day they'll have the same sort of thing here on Vancouver Island, because the rivers here are under great pressure too. The one that we have, a little Courtney River that goes by here, so it's one that floods each year. And of course, with climate change, there are going to be more demands made from more corners of the province and of the country.
Yeah, you're right when you mention the flood hazard management strategy. It's still one of our cornerstone projects when we're trying now to build a strategy for the Lower Mainland that will hopefully avoid the significant devastation that took place in Alberta in 2013, and the whole aspect of coastal flooding as well as river flooding, and the importance of ensuring those are taken into account.
An everyday understanding that these sorts of effects are going to happen. They're not mythological, they're not a hoax, as some people are wont to say. It is a realistic interpretation of how climate change is going to impact the future. And the next evocation of this Council has to embrace that future requirement.
Yeah, very much so. And I know under your leadership, you also encouraged us to sort of stay behind the scenes and give the credit to others. So we'd be an effective catalyst and a convener of safe tables. And that leadership and your guidance was still as prominent today as when you initiated it.
Well, you have a great deal of action in that too, because you were the facilitator. When we were hard pressed to make a decision, you were always there with the facilitation process. And there was a time when no one understood what facilitation was. And we took people from all corners of society, people of different opinions, people of different partisan linkages. All of that had to be put into one table of decision making. And that was something new.
Absolutely, and especially the prominent role of First Nations. And as you know, when we built the organization, we wanted to make sure that First Nations were part of building that foundation. And then the whole experience in developing the charter and the Bob Pascoes and the Roy Mussells and the Reg Muellers, and their constant emphasis on ensuring that rights and title were a prominent part of the charter, and ended up being in Principle 11, which we refer to constantly.
Yes, but it's also Section 35 of Canada's Constitution. And there it is, right in black and white from 1982, Aboriginal Rights and Title. And it's still being resolved all across the country. It's still a major part of everyday considerations by government.
Absolutely, and that whole new relationship is something, especially in British Columbia and in the UN Declaration of Rights and Title of Indigenous Peoples and the whole free, prior and informed consent that's now coming into resource management issues is more prominent than ever.
You're right, and we have the big responsibility, all of us, and that includes the First Nations, toward building reconciliation. And that reconciliation can only come about through appropriate understanding of each other, of each other's history, and building this society. Of course, the millennials are going to shape the society now that they will live in, but they have to make sure that every part of every background, all peoples, no matter what their beginnings were, they are now Canadians and they have an obligation to build the country. I think that's a very exciting prospect.
Yeah, very much so. And so this whole notion of sustainability was fairly new, as you remember, back in the mid-1990s. It followed from the Brundtland Commission's definition of sustainable development. As you know, we brought in that third dimension, that social dimension, and the importance of it. And do you see that whole term sustainability evolving over the last 20 years?
Sure. Social responsibility now might include insights being established across the province to stop some of the deaths that are occurring from overdoses in drugs. Social responsibility can embrace a whole wealth of things besides water management.
Yeah, very much so, and I think that was quite an interesting discussion we had at the board table in 2009, because as you know, when we started the organization, the focus was on the Fraser River system and sustaining this very valuable river system that is the largest, or one of the largest, salmon producing systems in the world. And then we've gone from there now to not only focus on climate change and water management, but sustainable communities. And we've now extended that mandate to be province-wide.
I'm glad to hear that, because the effect of fish farms on salmon production is something that has to be embraced across partisan lines, transpartisan lines. We, as British Columbians, are not leaving the strongest legacy to the future of salmon that we could. The Skeena River, with which I was associated as a kid, is under it's one of the last ones, but I notice when you go shopping today to buy salmon, it'll say Alaska salmon, no longer British Columbia.
So what were some wise words from the founding chair of the Fraser Basin Council as we look forward to the future? What sort of role could the council play in that?
Well, I know when you're old, you're supposed to become wise, but as far as I can see, what we have to do is to keep evolving, to build organizations that are capable of functioning within the time that they are located, and bringing in people of another generation is critical to building the future of the Fraser Basin Council.